So welcome everybody. I think we're live now. Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to this webinar in which we'll be discussing the current status of the economy, specifically unemployment, and along with our guest, we'll go over some trends and techniques that have come out to help us through new job search through this pandemic. My name is Jose Veguilla and I am the ALPFA's VP of Financial Literacy. And let me start our session by saying that here at ALPFA, we have put this content together to be a resource to help you through this process. And like our ALPFA president, Damian Rivera, and our ALPFA Boston chapter president, Mario Rivera, are always saying in their sessions, we are here to help. So why are we talking about unemployment today? Well, the US economy lost over 20 million jobs in April, and the last time we saw numbers this severe was during the Great Depression. Sadly, as you will see, the impact is greater for the Hispanic and Latino community. Many of you are going through a job search during one of the most challenging times in history. So this will be the agenda that we'll be going over today. We'll do a brief timeline over COVID-19. We'll touch base on the economic outlook. We'll talk a little bit about unemployment, how the state of Massachusetts is looking, and we'll talk about some hiring trends and some job search preparation. So first, let's go over what ALPFA is, and ALPFA is the Association of Latino Professionals for America. Main takeaway here is that ALPFA has over 20,000 members nationwide, and the Boston chapter has over 8,000 members, over 20 corporate partners, and close to 10 university chapters. And built within our mission is that ALPFA is here to provide opportunities for Latino professionals. So we are here to serve as a bridge between America's Latinos and the business community. So again, we are here to help. And today we have a very special guest. His name is Evan Glasser, and he's a recruiting manager at Robert Half. He works with both job seekers and companies across different fields, including tech, pharma, e-commerce, finance. I was just talking to Evan. Evan is a dual Australian-American citizen, and his love for communication was what drove him into working in the recruiting industry in the first place. So I am sure that you will enjoy his passion and energy. So how did we get here? And here's a brief timeline of the developments of this COVID-19 pandemic. So on December 31st, the World Health Organization first reported the detection of this new virus. The first case that was reported in the US happened in January 20th. The actual pandemic was declared on March 11th. On March 13th is when the US declared it a national emergency. On March 26th, the US reported the most cases in the world. So this has definitely had an impact on the current state of the economy. So here are some of the experts' opinions and projections that they had before and after COVID-19. So before COVID-19, economists and experts were estimating that the world economy in terms of real GDP was going to be 2.6 for 2020 and 2.8 for 2021. So after COVID-19, we're seeing that the actual projections are negative 2.1 for 2020, and a recovery is expected for 2021. We must know that real GDP, average normal world GDP, is around 3% annually. So the good thing here is that experts and economists are projecting that this will end and that we will have a recovery after 2020. Transferring now to the US, these numbers very similar. Before COVID-19, economy was projected to grow at 2%, 1.9% for 2020 and 20 2021. After COVID-19, we see a contraction of 3.1% and recovery in 2021 for 3.8%. So again, recovery is expected. In terms of unemployment, as of the end of April, the total US unemployment rate was 14.7%. This hasn't been this high since, again, the Great Depression, when it hit 25% back in 1933. Unfortunately, for the Latino community, it hits harder. As of the end of April, this rate was 18.9% for Latinos. So this is the stat that has all of us here today. And since the total unemployment is expected to hit 25% in June, just imagine how higher it will impact the Latino community. Another alarming stat is the initial jobless claims. This is people who are applying for unemployment benefits for the first time since they were laid off, or they have no longer been classified as a full-time employee. So the current level of initial jobless claims at the end of April was 3.8 million. This number hit its highest point in mid-April, up to close to 7 million weekly claims. US continuous jobless claims has hit an all-time of almost 23 million at the beginning of May. These continuing jobless claims refers to the actual number of unemployed people. And this number is expected to go to 53 million in June. And again, that represents a 25% unemployment rate. So how does this transfer to local in Massachusetts? So the highest number of initial claims happened in mid-April, where it hit over 80,000. Total claims has been up close to over 700,000 since February, and it's expected that this number is going to grow to close to 1,975,000 by June, again transferring that to that 25% unemployment rate. So before I hand it over to our recruiting expert, who's going to show us how to deal with this and the recent trends in the job search, I want to talk a little bit about the summary of unemployment benefits that are out there. First, we have the initial unemployment insurance claim, where you can get up to approximately 50% of your weekly wage. And on top of that, we got the PUA, or the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, that was approved through the CARES Act. And this one has a higher coverage than the unemployment insurance. You can get up to $600 per week on top of that unemployment. This is applied retroactively to the first week of unemployment. And the most important thing is that these funds run out. So if you're going to apply for the PUA, you must act soon. Both of these benefits are handled through the government of Massachusetts. So go to mass.gov, and that's where all the information is to apply for these. If you have any questions, we're here at Alpha are here to help. And with that, I will hand it over to our guest, Evan. Go ahead, Evan.
Hey guys, lovely to be here. Thanks very much, Jose. Would love to sort of dive on in here quickly. You know, obviously this job market is very, very tough. In some aspects. I'll be speaking a little bit more about that later, but you know, sort of the industries that have been really most affected by COVID are essentially a number. There's the travel and tourism industry. There is events and hospitality, and sort of companies that specialize in putting on, you know, and hosting these sort of events. Obviously, the hospitality industry, you know, Airbnb and, you know, hotel chains, et cetera, really are taking a big hit. Advertising agencies that are doing essentially supporting work for all these industries that sort of are listed here, unfortunately for them. Gyms, sports and fitness products, which require, large groups of people to be in an area at once, and sort of startups again that are sort of in that space. And then tech products and tech services, which are geared towards these industries. I don't know how much people have been paying attention, but Toast in Boston, the point of sale restaurant SaaS product really took a big hit, obviously because no one's really in the restaurants and eating, unfortunately. So, as a result of this, companies are really having to adapt pretty difficultly to this new environment. So that really means they're going to be much more likely to try and save money wherever they can. This can lead to a reduction in hiring in the workforce. They're less likely to be looking to hire because they're sort of uncertain about what's coming up, or that they have taken such a large hit, in COVID from their business that they really just can't afford to be, actively hiring as much. But this isn't always the case, because there are a lot of other companies which are actually very flexible, or which are actually benefiting a fair bit from this sort of from COVID. And that's sort of more along the lines of organizations who are working within the e-commerce space, for example. Companies like Wayfair, companies like Chewy are really doing quite well. If you are looking at Wayfair's stock pricing as of late, it's been really skyrocketing up a lot, and other e-commerce is sort of following suit. Obviously food delivery, I'm sure as you guys, sometimes it's a little bit lazy to be making lunch and making dinner every day, and helping out with the local economy is always nice as well. So, DoorDash, Grubhub are doing quite well. Healthcare and pharma, really killing it right now. Education, ed tech, government, cybersecurity, and then obviously, SaaS technology, which is in place, kind of gearing to these organizations, and then fintech as well, financial technology organizations, which, as now everything's sort of becoming more digital, as everyone's sort of offline, companies need to be able to adapt and need to be able to work with that. So, online payment services or different techniques like that are really crucial. So, as we kind of proceed into this new market, like us as job seekers, we also need to be flexible too. My specific recruiting background really relies in marketing and marketing, or creative skill sets and creative talents. That's really where my sweet spot is in terms of me understanding the industry. So, these are the sort of tools to any of you who are marketers out there that I really think that a lot of my clients who I'm working with are really strongly looking for. They're looking for people who can come in and can really understand, digital marketing and marketing automation tools. Marketo, Pardo, Locore, HubSpot's a really good one, because HubSpot's actually free to learn and use. You can hop on their website and actually get that certificate if you're sort of looking to be going down that line. SEO, that's a really cool skill set right now, really hot skill set in the digital marketing space. You can check out moz.com for some news on that if you really want to be looking to develop your SEO skills. Google Analytics, like an analytical tools, this actually just transcends marketing. Like, there's a lot of different sort of, it's so useful to be able to kind of like glean and pull and get information from, where your sales numbers are coming from. So, again, Google Analytics is free to learn, but if you've picked up skills in, Adobe Analytics, SQL, Python, all these are skills that organizations are looking for. And then look, if you're a designer, obviously mastering the Adobe Creative Suite, and also getting familiar with HTML and CSS is, I think, a really important thing, because that's what, to make yourself a much more rounded, much more sort of ambitious designer means that you need to be comfortable working in the web space as well. And so, having that HTML and having that CSS background is crucial. Like I said, this is my area of expertise, but and actually this leads perfectly right into this new slide here, but network with other recruiters here who are, are specialized in your skill set. So they can tell you essentially what they're seeing and what they're doing and what their clients are looking for. So you can kind of prepare yourself and present yourself there. So, use LinkedIn and use a good recruiter. Now, I'm sure everyone's had an experience with a bad recruiter, and unfortunately that's the case. But a good recruiter is really different. Like, a good recruiter is actually going to go to bat for you. A good recruiter is actually there to kind of help you get a job. And a good recruiter is going to give you the right kind of advice. So, obviously not everyone's good at their job, right? But there are some who are. And the difference that essentially a search can make when you're working with someone who's actually invested in your job hunt is actually crucial. It's essentially like having a second person doing job hunting with you, and they can kind of skip, and it makes it so much better. So what I'd recommend here is that you have a sort of 3-step recruiting process. You obviously find a hiring manager in a company and shoot them a connection. and you sort of like learn a little bit more about that. This is the first step. So I think networking is super crucial. So, ask them, talk to them about, the role. Say, look, I'm really interested in your team. I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about your day to day. And I'd really love to sort of schedule some time to speak with you and try and get that on video, because that really builds rapport. They can see your face and they can kind of get to know you. But I think that like this networking element is something that's very underutilized. A lot of the time, like people just sort of do like one of these sort of tactics, so to speak, that I'm about to present. And that's really just like shooting your resume into essentially just like the general application portal through LinkedIn or through, the online company portal or through other job pages, which you find the job. And I like to call that the black hole. Obviously sometimes things are going to get picked up, but the vast majority of stuff just sit in there because the internal hiring agencies, like we said before, they're just so overwhelmed and so overcrushed and stuff like that they just, they don't always have the time and the resources to be going through all of this. So, you got to be trying to put your best foot forward here, and you got to be trying to essentially be using as many different channels and as many different ways for you to be, getting in front of the right person, which is really the key here, is making sure you're in front of the right person. So, like I said, use LinkedIn to network, get a good recruiter, find that hiring manager, try and network with them as much as possible, try and be proactive, because being proactive is also really attractive to people who are looking to be filling roles. If you are someone who is actively, interested in learning more about the team, interested in learning more about what the hiring manager does, and that's just like a much more, like think about it yourself. Would you rather have someone who's just thrown their application into a bloody portal, or would you rather have someone who's actually taken the time to, get interested, to reach out, to be connecting? Like, connectivity is everything in what I do. And, the opportunity for you to stand out as a person and for you to sort of be willing to take that extra step to be getting in front of that right person is really absolutely crucial, so to speak, in your networking experience. So, this is how we stand out, because companies are indeed still hiring. New England has actually only seen a sort of 6.5% like rise in unemployment compared with the rest of the country. So we're fortunately in like a bit of a bubble, because those industries that we were speaking about before, a lot of them are based in Massachusetts. Mass has so much biotech, so much healthcare and pharma. It's got education. It's got like technology that support all these systems. So there is still a lot of opportunity left in this market. So in your search, is crucial to be targeting these kind of organizations, because not only are these companies not affected, but they're actually doing exceptionally well, or not necessarily exceptionally well, but some of them are thriving in this market. And so, it's really, 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 really important to sort of be using this three-pronged approach to be targeting these specific companies. I will say though, obviously, like I mentioned before about the hiring organizations kind of going remote, expect this process to slow down considerably. Companies are trying their best to adapt to work remotely, but, as we kind of go through this new process, things can be a bit rusty. So, just expect everything to slow down. People have a lot more work behind the scenes now, as I'm sure a lot of you are probably seeing. Parents have to deal with their children who are not allowed to obviously be going into school, and that in itself is an entirely different, fun, exciting challenge. A lot of my clients, it's funny, I hear their kids crying in the background and stuff like that when we're working with them, and they're like, "Oh, look, I'm so sorry, but like my kids are just driving me up the wall," etc. So there's a lot of like unforeseen things which are just affecting people on the back end here, which we don't necessarily see as much when we're in the office space. So just keep in mind that things are going to be moving slowly, and just get that diligent follow-up going. Like, there's nothing wrong with following up, because that's what you do. If they don't get back to you, that's on them, but you got to just be making sure you're doing all the best things that you can to be really sort of standing out in this new market space. So, I think really the most important thing which we can kind of say is to sort of talk through a couple of, like, to sort of reiterate and kind of go over some of the things that I think are really good tips once you've actually, to really sort of help out in this search. And that is, like I said before, after that video conference, to connect and build rapport. Rapport is so important. This is a people business. Recruiting is all about people, funnily enough. And so, getting the opportunity to really stand out and say who you are, and saying who you are as a personality is absolutely crucial. And next, I think another really, really interesting thing is, obviously to just be getting and diving straight on into that video. This is how it's going to be, probably indefinitely. I have friends of mine who I know are not going back into the office for the rest of the year. So, that's that. Video's video, unfortunately. So embrace it. Obviously don't be creepy, but embrace it as much as you can, and really sort of like, it's a great opportunity to be getting some face time, quite literally, no pun intended. I'm sorry, terrible joke. So like I said as well, initially, it's like, being selective and really researching hard and focusing on those organizations. And thankfully there are a number in Massachusetts, but in those organizations that are, doing the work that's thriving, or that's succeeding. I sort of have been finding quite recently that things are starting to open up a little bit more, but again, finding that technology space, healthcare space, e-commerce, stick with those kind of things, and that's definitely going to be making the search a lot easier, so to speak. Be very clear on salary expectations. I think that flexibility is important, but also really remember your worth as a candidate. That's so crucial and so important, like in this sort of market. Like, a lot of the times people are might try and take advantage of you during this time because they assume that, because either, there's a lot of people out of work and et cetera, that they think that they can get you, down, but be making sure that, you are a little bit flexible, but you understand kind of where you are in the market and what your value is. And look, like, if you ever have questions about that offline, like, this is actually something that I can help out with at Robert Half. We do have a salary guide, which we put out every year, which essentially explains like averages and stuff like that, which we see in Boston. So a lot of people actually don't really know how much they're worth as a candidate. And that's, I think, one of the things that really frustrates me a lot as well, because a lot of companies can get away with, underpaying people in certain skill sets. So if you want to learn more about that, just feel free to catch up with me offline there. I guess it was be mindful, and authenticity is so important. Like, really being able to have your personality come through. Like, people aren't interested in the skill set. People are interested in you. Like, obviously the skill set is written on the line and you need to tick a couple of boxes, but even so, just being yourself and letting yourself shine through, I think is crucial. And that mindful element, understanding that there are things offline which you aren't seeing, and just being patient and consistent and polite and professional, and doing the best that you can to essentially be doing the right thing. Again, if you have any questions about this, I'm also happy to catch up offline too. Flexibility. I've sort of been mentioning this throughout the entire call, but it is so crucial. Like, things are going to be different. Things are going to be remote. Things are going to be offline. Like, start dates are going to get pushed back. Things are going to get furloughed, et cetera, et cetera. So, keeping that positive attitude, and I know it isn't easy. In fact, it's really quite difficult sometimes, especially when the stuff sort of hits the fan, so to speak. But like, just sticking with it and having the drive and having the having the detriment to continue your search will just do everything for you. And again, I know it's not easy, but you just got to get back up again and keep going. And then next we have the patient and understanding element. I've sort of gone through that enough. I'll stop beating a dead horse here. So we'll go to the we'll go to the next one. Yeah, here we go. This panic element, I think, is really important for us to really sort of dial back in on. When you're coming into a market like this, and when you see all this scary information, which we've seen, initially, and we can sort of look around and we, things can look a little bit grim. I think the most important thing is to keep calm and carry on, so to speak. And that is just to be like, look, like, yeah, things are bad. Things look different, but things in Boston aren't too bad. Things in Massachusetts aren't too bad. All I can do is essentially to do what I can to be making sure that I'm doing my best to make myself stand out, make myself be an interesting candidate, to learn the skills I need and to target the companies that I'm doing. And then at that point, you're just being genuine and you're having faith in your own ability. And I think that is absolutely crucial, is that we as sort of as job seekers in general, I think really need to be, and I'm going to go into this a little bit later, but we really need to be sort of more, we really need to be confident in ourselves. That's the most important element of this, of this. And I'll continue a little more of that later. Yeah, this is cool. Don't wait, do it. Just do it. Nike slogan. I like it. Just do it. I mean, like, at the end of the day, no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to give you that leg up. You got to work. This is America, baby. You got to work. Like, we got to be able to, this country, there's a lot of a lot of mixed bags. But one of the good things about it is that if you do put the effort in, you know, things do come out. So don't wait to do this. Don't put yourself on the back burner. Don't be like, oh, I'll do it next day. Like if you see someone that you need help and you want to network now. If you see something, don't think about it. Just keep going, keep driving, and keep working forward and be confident. Yeah. And so this is it. Like, you know, I think that like the way I'd like to finish this is really just to kind of talk about, you know, again, what I was mentioning before, and that is the value that you are as an individual. Every single person listening to this call, you know, is someone who brings a unique and different skill set to whatever it is that they're doing that no one else can bring, regardless of what that is. You know, you yourself are unique, and while there's people who can probably do similar things to what you can, no one is you. So that whole point of essentially like just sticking it out and like, you know, having faith and having confidence and just making sure you're doing the right things, and you're doing the right things to be making sure that you're, like I said, targeting those right companies, that you're, you know, networking, that you're, you know, working with a recruiter, and just keeping that faith and keeping that faith in your skill set. And look, like, you know, it can be tough. Like, I'm not saying that this is necessarily easy. I'm not, you know, sometimes there can be days, and we've all had them. You know, I've been fired before, and I've sort of woken up the next day and just been like, wow, like this is terrible. Like, you know, I've had to sort of fight for unemployment and for an organization, you know, for unfair stuff like that. Like, you know, the corporate world can really take a lot out of you, but at the end of the day, like, you know, no one is you and no one is an individual like you. And so only you can kind of bring what you bring, and only you can do what you do what you do best. So remember that, and remember that you are valuable and that you are needed, and that you know, you're a terrific candidate moving forward. So, you know, I'll shut up now, but like hopefully some of this was helpful for you guys. There's my contact information underneath in this set. So if there are any questions, or, you know, if you want to catch up with me offline, I'm more than happy to hop on the phone. You know, even if you aren't in my sort of area of expertise, so to speak, I'm more than happy to connect. You know, if I can't help you, I'm happy to try and direct you to the people that can, but please consider me a resource. Thank you very much for your time, Jose. Thanks so much. I'll shoot back to you.
Thank you, Evan. We've got some time available, and if anyone has any questions, I'll open up the floor and you can shoot them up through the chat. I'm looking through the Zoom chat and through our Facebook Live to see if anyone has some questions. That was great information. Thank you, Evan, for those tips and recommendations. Definitely we're navigating through uncharted waters here, and having guidance and information from experts like yourself really helps ease the process. Let me see here. Again, I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure putting this content together with you. Looking forward to doing more things and seeing you involved with more events like these with Alpha and our members. Like Evan has said throughout the presentation, he's glad to connect with you. Here is his contact information if you want to get in touch with him directly. I would also encourage you to follow Alpha Boston through all of our social media platforms, in which we are all constantly posting updates about news, events, about the community, and events within our corporate partners. One thing that I would like all of you to remember is that through your Alpha membership, you have access to the ALPFAmilia, and you can connect and interact with other members across the country. And you have access, more importantly, to the Alpha online job board, in which you can post your resume and search for jobs. And again, feel free to contact any of us here at Alpha Boston, and to help you get through this. We are also more than happy to share your resume and contact information, not just only with Evan, who will gladly help you through this process, but also with our corporate partners. Let's see if we have any questions here.
You want to put my contact info up so that everyone can,
Sure.
see it? We didn't, I did. Usually the best way to get to me is email, just because, I mean, I'm happy to take calls as well, but it might be better just in terms of like timing to be able to schedule that offline. But I see there a tip for standing out as a candidate in a virtual setting. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, obviously in as we get sort of virtual, like it's becomes difficult because, one of my favorite elements of the, recruiting process and the hiring process is actually that, face-to-face interaction. And that's a, really, really good way for you to be, getting noticed, so to speak. And that's a funny way of saying it, but you know what I mean? I think that essentially we just got to kind of take that to the next level into a virtual space. So I think that what you want to be doing is you want to be making sure that all your LinkedIn stuff is really up to scratch and really up to code. I'm happy to, like I said, help sort of give some recommendations on how to sort of set up a really good LinkedIn profile and what that looks like. I think I think also that the that virtual video setting is really, really, really good. I saw someone say in the comments there that they would, recommend joining networking groups. I think that's a great idea. But I would also just say as well that no one's going to do it for you. You really have to do this yourself, while groups are terrific, really this can be sort of your own initiative and going out there and showing showing that you are very, driven and very passionate. I think also really stands out too. But groups obviously ALPFA is awesome, and there's loads of other ones around for job searchers who can, you guys can sort of compare notes and stuff and go there as well. But like I said, hitting that video I think is also crucial.
So I have here, one of the questions here is tips to standing out as a candidate in a virtual setting. One thing that I would reiterate here is that, and we touched a little bit through our best practices, and is how you can stand out to show how you're dealing with this pandemic and how you can turn a negative into a positive. And one of the things that I've seen is that people have been going through online training, and there's a lot of companies out there that are giving free coaching sessions and free certificates, and you can get additional skill, like Evan was saying, go through a data analytics course and get certified there. And then you can show, put that in your resume and put that in front of a hiring recruiter, say, hey, through this pandemic, I took the time and I brushed up on these skill sets. And I built this Excel model, and I can provide it to use for any of your companies. So let's see, another question here. Take away from the fourth element. So let's go back to our fourth element here, manage salary expectations. So,
yeah. So sorry, Jose, do you mind?
No, go ahead.
Absolutely happy to restate that. I think this is something that, like I was sort of saying is really, is really important, because I think that a lot of the time organizations, especially in times like this, they're kind of like profit mechanism. And this is not obviously everyone. There are a lot of great companies in Boston, which, do a lot, and Massachusetts as a whole, and in fact everywhere, that treat their employees well and that, do a great job. But, there are some companies which might be really worth your time working for, but are really just looking to be making sure that they're looking after their bottom line. So what that means they'll do is usually every time you're given an offer, it's usually somewhat of a low ball, and there's usually a little bit of opportunity for you to negotiate. And this is where kind of and again, Emily, I'm happy to share with you my salary guide offline if you would like to connect. But kind of making sure that you understand what your skill set is worth coming into this interview. And then also my recommendation is to never accept that first offer that they give you. Always try and negotiate that. Because like I said, usually they're going to try and see how much wiggle room they can give you. And they'll probably try and ask you about salary throughout the entire time that you're interviewing. my recommendation is that you be very vague. If you sort of use if you're not working with a recruiter, because a recruiter is going to essentially manage that for you and make sure that, you get what it is that you need, a good recruiter. But essentially, if they ask you questions about salary, just be like, yeah, look, I mean, I'm very confident that, if we do decide to proceed with my candidacy, that you guys will be making me a fair offer towards the end. And if they really push you on it, then just give them a vague range, usually within sort of 10,000 sort of, depending on the position that you're looking for. I usually like to sort of suggest between $10,000 to $20,000. Just so you sort of wide range, and that gives you room for negotiation as well towards the end. But understanding your worth as a candidate, and then not letting organizations kind of easily get you for cheaper than you deserve. I think that's really important when you're sort of working with salary expectations. So Emily, if you have any other questions, but I hope that answered that.
So Jeff here is saying, be persistent in your search. If you reach out to someone and you don't hear back, follow up. People are busy and may miss your email or message. And I think this goes back to your advice on being patient and being flexible. Everybody is going through this, and recruiting managers won't be as reachable as they would be in normal times. So this one goes back to that one. Great advice there, Jeff. Natalie has a question saying, what's your piece of advice to identify the best recruiter that will advocate for you?
That's, I think, a really great question. Really, really, really good question. So look, recruiters are going to be, they're essentially obviously they're trying to get paid too, right? At the end of the day, but you should be able to determine whether or not someone is just trying to get paid, or whether or not someone's trying to get a job and get paid. And that is essentially the way that I like to look at it, is response. If you are working with a recruiter and they essentially are honest with you, they set expectations with you, and they respond to your outreach, regardless of whether or not you have a role that they're working on, that's a recruiter that's worth working with, because that means that they actually care about their professional relationships, and they're interested not only in sort of making a connection with you, but also they sort of are thinking long-term about, not only where you are now, but where you could go. Because if you're a good recruiter, you're not thinking about the now, because the now is going to get you essentially, it's going to make you one connection maybe, but the future, now that's where the opportunity is. Because if you help someone get a job when they're, in their marketing specialist role, eventually that person's going to become a marketing manager, in which case they're going to be hiring their own marketing specialists. So the way that I would really, identify the best recruiter is the way that that person treats you, or the way that person, or the sort of the professionalism in which that person interacts and responds and respects you as a candidate. If you have any follow-up questions, let me know. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that one ties also to our advice on being selective. We have, as during our job search, we have a list of non-negotiables, right? And if you can find that match with a recruiter that aligns your non-negotiables with the job post that he's working through, then I think that's how you find your ideal match with a recruiter. I have another question here. Who are good recruiters looking for candidates who have international executive work experience? So for that one, I would say that Alpha has a list of corporate sponsors that have an international presence. We can definitely help you align yourself to go through those openings in our with our corporate partners. And I'm sure that Evan works for a few companies that are looking for international work experience. So that one we can take offline between Alpha and between Evan, and we can help you with that one. So thank you, Cheryl, for that one.
Yeah, happy to connect offline.
Yeah. So let's see. Laura on Facebook is saying, Is experience with remote work helpful during these times?
You know what? I think it is, but I think that I think it's really about you telling your story once you're getting into that space. I really do think it can be helpful, because if you bring up during an interview, we know that right now that we're going to be remote onboarding. There's no, that's how it is. So the fact that you can prove that you've remoted on board, Thursday, almost Friday. The fact that you've onboarded remotely in the past, I think, it's just a good way of sort of building your sort of big overall general candidacy picture, and really can't hurt. So yeah, I would encourage, if you have worked remotely before and you have onboarded remotely, I think that only can provide value to companies, because that means that you've done this before. So you're not going to be, you might not be as much of a, it might not be as much of a process as someone who's never done it before. But, that being said, because everyone's doing it, I don't anticipate, that being too much of an issue, so to speak, people who haven't remoted on board. So, if you have, terrific,
And is that something that we want to make pop out in our resumes and in our LinkedIn profiles as well?
It's up to you. I think so. I think it's always good to let everyone know that when a positions are remote. And I can sort of catch up with anyone who has any questions about, resumes or LinkedIn offline. But, if you just put like a little brackets remote underneath or next to the position, that gives a good idea, because sometimes I'll be, looking at candidates and it'll be like, wait a minute, you're out in California, but says you live in Medford. Wait, what? But once I speak to them, it's like, oh, well, that's a remote role. Ah, good. Right. Cool. So yeah, I think it's great.
Cool. Jeff has some advice here saying that especially during these times, follow up with recruiting managers periodically so you're still fresh in their minds. And also, again, be flexible, and you need to be open to accepting temp roles and contract roles to keep your skills sharp. So again, be flexible there.
I will say, Jeff, that's really, really good advice. With the temp and contract roles, I would say that you would want to you would want to do your best first and foremost to try and find a perm role first. Going contracting, obviously during right now is fine, but I think in this market, if you have a perm work background and you have a strong skill set and you do your correct networking, and you shouldn't have it, you should be able to get yourself another perm job, even in the current climate. So, absolutely happy to kind of hop offline and sort of discuss, sort of strategy individually, because obviously it's going to be extremely different for each person. But I think that all in all, like Jeff, you've been giving some great advice here, mate. So I appreciate you.
Yeah. So you're saying basically, you know what you're worth and what you're bringing to the table, and you can't be, you can be selective during these times as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, you should never, like I said before, you should never sell yourself short, because like we were sort of saying before, despite the fact with all of this sort of stuff, you still are you, and you still are important, and you still bring value to somebody, you know what I mean? So, like I said, it's all about that individual strategy, but know your worth, and don't settle for less than what you deserve.
Okay. Again, we here at Alpha are here to help, and one of those advice that we gave is to network and join organizations such like Alpha. Alpha is also, as you can say, Latino, Latino professionals. And if you are new to Boston, Greater Massachusetts, Greater Boston, and you're still struggling with language, and I would say 99% of us are bilingual and speak other languages, and we can help you through that process as well. So with that, let's see. Doesn't look like we have many more questions. So let's see if we can wrap it up here. Again, feel free to contact Alpha Boston. We are here to help. here is a preview of more events that can help you through this process. This is Entrepreneurial Snacks. Our next bite is on June 3rd. This is part of our 6-part series. Make sure you register for that. We have leaders in the community who are talking about and more tips and techniques to help you through this process. And this one will be directed towards leadership. And with that said, I want to thank you, Evan, again for your participation. I want to thank all of our attendants for your attention and your time today. And especially, I want to thank all of our corporate partners. Here are a list of our lead partners, our platinum partners, our gold partners, our silver level partners, our bronze level partners, our strategic partners. So with that, thank you all, and I guess we'll see you next time. Thank you, Evan.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Jose.